Three, two, one, go. Conversion therapy can be the best thing for some people in our society, and we think that it is something bad that the government doesn't give these people access to something that can be life-changing and something that can do so much positive and so much good for people's lives. What are two cases coming out of OG? The first case is we're going to talk about religious people and why conversion therapy is something that is so crucial to them. And secondly, a point in Eliav's speech about why other people that may not that may want to use this and why it's crucial for them. Before that, let's be very clear on the mechanism that we're setting up. Like in terms of like what time we're in society, right? Like the fact that we have these psychological studies, like it's not just going to be fake studies or studies that come from biased sources. It's going to be like proper studies where we have like concrete evidence and we have like where we've like checked up on the people that have gone through the conversion therapy 5 years after, 10 years after, 20 years after, to check to make sure that their psychological well-being is good, to make sure that they've actually fully like they feel like they've like had a good conversion and that everything is all right and that everything is good, right? We don't think this is going to be some sort of crap study. Secondly, on what does legalization look like? Three key things to note here. The first is that we're only going to like allow professionals with government approval to do this, right? This is going to be like something that is done through the government. So not any person can just like set up shop. Like you're going to have to be someone that has, you're going to have to be like probably a therapist. You're going to have gone through extensive training before you're allowed to do this. You're going to have to go through extensive testing. And moreover, secondly, we think you're going to have like anyone that wants to apply to use this conversion therapy is going to have to go and talk like to a psychologist before, like to explain to him that like the process, what's going to happen, to make sure that they are free and to make sure they are rational when they're making this decision, and that they understand what's going on and that people aren't pressuring them into doing this. Third of all, in terms of like minors, like we would have additional checkups to make sure that they are completely understand the decision that they are making, right? We think that this is a similar decision that like minors who want to become transgender take. Like we think that kids are know this about themselves. Like some kids are able to know this about themselves, and if they've like gone through the talk with a psychologist and like they understand what they're getting into, then we think that it's fine. Let's understand why conversion therapy is super crucial for religious people and why the comparative of the black market is really bad. Before that, sure, I'll take a clarification.
So yeah, the motion doesn't give you fiat to define how this looks like. Can you please explain why this is likely?
Like why is this likely? Most of the people in the government today are like not radical religious people, but rather people from like the center. We think that it's likely, like most people aren't anti-gay and they've heard horror stories about like the way that this would look like, which would be really bad. We think that the people that are doing this are probably like, we're in a liberal democracy, they're probably a liberal government, they're probably doing it the right way, they'd probably get a lot of backlash from like other places if it wasn't done correctly. If you want that, you can give us nitoch makbid, then fine. Let's get into our case about why we think conversion therapy is so crucial for some religious people. 3 reasons here. The first reason is that you have to understand on a personal level, for some people, their relationship with God is the most important thing for them, right? Like the fact that they're living in sin every day, like harms them to their very core every day because they feel that they're doing something wrong. They feel that they are doing something bad day after day. They feel like they are letting God down and disappointing him. But the second reason why this is super crucial is because like religion is based on the notion of hell. And the fact that they're continuing to do this, the fact that they're continuing to live a gay lifestyle makes them feel like they're going to end up in hell, makes them feel like they are in sin, makes them feel like they are bad people, right? For some religious people, religion is the most important thing in their life, the thing that they derive the most meaning from, right? If it's people that like pray, Muslims that pray 5 times a day, Jews that pray 3 times a day, God is everywhere in their lives, and this is super, super important to them. By letting down God, this is something that is super harmful to them. The second thing here that we need to understand for religious people is in terms of marriage, kids, and the future. The ability to convert and the ability to marry a straight woman and to be content with that, and to be able to make her happy, and to be able to have children. And to be able to have children through the biological way is something extremely important. if you are a gay person in a religious society, which woman is going to want to marry you? Who is going to want to have kids with you? According to religion, you can't have kids through surrogacy. There are many issues with that, right? In terms of my future, this is also something that's super crucial to me. The third thing to note here is in terms of the community and my family and being accepted by the people that are around me. If I convert, if I am gay or not, can super impact this and like super impact my well-being. And we think like having a community and a family that is supportive can be extremely important to your psychological well-being. Like we see stories where like families like stopped supporting their kid because of all of these, because of things like that, and where really bad things can happen to you if you don't have this community that is a safety net for you. Let's understand then why we think that we have a moral responsibility, because we think that like we're gonna shift the burden to side opposition to explain to us why the government is allowed to deny people the right to use this amazing tool that can help them change their life, even if there's only a 50% chance. Before I weigh this against like the comparative, which is the black market, and before we weigh the 50%, I'll take a POI from CEO. Sure.
Well, we just think that when you treat homosexuality as a disease, when you say we will get a conversion for that, you only make it less possible to have social change, even in the most religious groups.
I don't think like we're necessarily treating it as a disease. It's just something that I want to change about. Like you're gonna have to explain why people see this as a disease, but moreover, comparatively, the people that are seeing this like if some people see this as a disease, they see this as a disease anyway in the status quo. Where's the comparative? Let's talk about the black market, because we think that on the comparative, like what's happening today where it isn't legalized in some places, is that this happens in the black market in way more extreme conditions. Because as we told you, religion is so important to those people. They care about it so much, they're even going to go and break the law. This is much worse. We think that on our side, when we legalize it, people are likely to opt into the legal version because we have advertising, because we have stories of success, because now it's easier to catch the people that are on the black market, and the people that are on the legal market are likely to find them and rat them out, because then they can get their customers. We think that when we compare this to the black market, where this is done in very harsh ways, like just showing pornography to people or like using psychological tricks that can be very harmful to your well-being, we think that we win on the comparative. But lastly, let's do a weighing of like they're going to say, but oh no, the 50% of people that this doesn't work for them are going to be really harmed, and that's bad. We tell you that when we weigh, all of the people in the debate are going to be harmed to some extent. The people on the 50% that this doesn't work, their life is going to be pretty bad anyways, but the 50% that it does work, this makes their life so much better. For all of these reasons, we beg of you.
3, 2, 1, go. Let's just say that I proved to you that Muslims leaving the religion made people more Islamophobic. Would you force Muslims to stay Muslims? That is the debate that we are having right now. And I think it would be insane to say, yes, we would force people to stay Muslims. And we say, yes, it is absurd to force people to stay gay. I'm going to explain to you why, as a gay person, it is extremely hard for me to be gay and why my life becomes significantly harder besides religion. And I'm going to weigh to you why the harm is done to people who aren't allowed to use conversion therapy is much bigger than any other harm in the debate. Beforehand, a few points of refutation. Firstly, let's engage with what Rachel tells us in terms of gay rights. So she first tells us, people are going to think that this is foolproof, and so they're going to blame people who are gay. Why are they going to think that this is foolproof? Because if I hear any statistic that tells me that something works sometimes, then I think it works all the time. What's the example she gives me? Vaccines. What's the problem with the example of vaccines? The vaccines, I was told it works 95% of the time. 95 is a really big number. So I'm like, so that's basically all of the time. Here it's 50%, right? So it probably doesn't work. A much better example would be, let's just say, chemotherapy. Chemotherapy works some of the time. Do people think that all chemotherapy works all the time and so cancer isn't real? No, they don't think that, because people do have a brain. But then she says, I'm going to think that I can do it over and over again until it basically becomes zero. Why is this absurd? Because these are licensed professionals who are going to tell people, no, you can't do that, right? And so once a bunch of people go to the therapist and they're told, no, you can't do it again, then people might stop thinking that you can do it an unlimited amount of time. We don't understand why this fiction is just going to exist and continue existing. This seems very, very confusing, right? But let's get into the actual point about the statement of saying that this is something that is curable, right? Number one, we don't understand why the fact that this is something that we can change means that people don't care about the people who are currently in it, considering that considering the fact that in many parts of society, this is seen as a legitimate thing, right? A lot of the pushes of the gay community has been, listen, it is legitimate to be gay. Don't hate people for being gay. We don't understand why this push can't continue working. But B, we think that there's still going to be a lot of sympathy for, even more sympathy for these people because they have a treatment that didn't work for them, right? The sympathy towards cancer patients doesn't stop because there are some cures for cancer, right? It's even worse in the sense that I had a chance of getting out. I did my best. I worked really, really hard, and it didn't work. Poor people who did everything that they could, and yet they still couldn't get out of the situation. Let's at least make their lives as livable as possible. Why this? We believe this is a much, much more likely scenario, especially when we're coming out of a point where people, in terms of the way they generally vote and the way they generally do rhetoric in their personal lives, we'll get to that separately, right? But in the way they do politics are generally pro-gay. So why this is the shift is really, really unclear to us, and we think that it's actually going to be the opposite shift. Lastly, let's get into what they tell us about the black market, right? They say, black market is going to be less common than this institution. We don't disagree, honestly, right? We do think that there'll be less people in the black market than in this.
Eliav?
Yeah.
I have to stop you for.
What happened?
Niri, you are muted.
Yeah, sorry, I stopped my timer for 2 minutes because we lost one of the speakers. My clock is on 3 minutes and 0 seconds.
Thanks, Nir. I literally just joined, so you stopped the clock at the exact moment when.
Okay, so Eliav, you may continue.
I missed the first 3 minutes though.
What? How many seconds? 3 minutes and how many seconds?
3 minutes and 0 seconds.
Oh, 0 seconds. Okay, cool. So 1 second, let me. Well, yeah, what was the last thing I said?
The last thing you said is that we're going to have more sympathy for those people. We tried to treat them, it didn't work. Therefore, we let them live with less suffering.
Say again?
We tried to treat those people, it didn't work. Therefore, we must let them live with less suffering.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, all good. 3, 2, 1, go. Lastly, let's get engaged with what they tell us about the black market, right? So they tell us, less people are going to be on the black market because it seems less legitimate. Yes, we do agree. Less people will be on the black market. That's fine, right? But why do we think this is still important? Number one, because there are still going to be a significant amount of people who still go to the black market. Why is this the case? Because of the stakes, right? Because of the fact that if I don't find the solution for this problem, I'm going to hell. Because if I don't find the solution to this problem, I can't do the religious act of getting married and having children and having offspring in the world properly, right? The stakes are so massive that some people are going to be willing to take the risk of doing this, right? And for those people, the impact is massive because what we are talking about is literal torture, right? It's being told that you are an insane person. It's being shown awful things. It's having awful things being done to you. Preventing people from getting tortured, in our opinion, is one of the most important things in this debate. Tzvi explains to you why it happens less on our side. Let's get into my point, right? Before that, I'll take a POI from opening.
The amount of queer people who are able to come out of the closet in the first place in these religious communities, and just the amount of these communities anyway, are very, very, very small. Why are you on Clash?
Okay, so a few things. Number one, we think that this applies to a lot of religious people who just are religious and are gay or queer, right? It's not just people who have to come out to everyone else. It's people, I feel this way, I would like to get out of this. Secondly, we think that this might actually increase the amount of people who do that, right? Which actually might make their relationship with their family much better because they actually have a solution for this problem. And if I'm wrong, then it's only going to be for people who I'm going to talk about now, but I don't think that I'm wrong, especially when, again, these religious people really care about not ending up in hell. And so there's a good chance that they'll open up about it if there's a way to solve this. Lastly, also, I can notice by the fact that you're not dating anyone or by the fact that you are dating a guy or whatever, cool. Let's get into my point, right? We have 3 mechanisms for why being gay is really, really not ideal, right? Number one is the fact that I can't have biological kids with my partner of my own, right? The fact that I can come together with the person who I love most, with the person who I want to live the rest of my life with, and we can create a child who is a part of both of us connected, who we can see growing, who we can see becoming versions of us, and know that we have put our input onto that person is something really, really amazing that our biology really, really pushes us to do. Secondly, is in terms of dating, right? The pool of partners that I have and the ability to get those partners is much, much bigger when I am straight, right? because of the fact that it's just A, more people, B, the people are more open about what they are, because some people are embarrassed about being gay, right? Which pushes a lot of people to go to like online dating, where it's like really hard to actually find good quality people and all sorts of things like that. Thirdly is discrimination. Discrimination means two things. Number one is just people thinking of me differently, right? Thinking of me as the gay person, thinking of me as the sort of the different person in the group, right? Always walking around with that knowledge. But secondly is just people who are bigoted in our society, who won't rent out an apartment to you, who will discriminate against you if you want to buy a wedding cake from them, right? Having to constantly deal with those things is immensely stressful and incredibly difficult for these people. Why do we win this debate? For three reasons. Number one, because you are denying people an escape from this hellhole because it's going to harm everybody else, right? What does this mean? Let's just, I'm sure that the gay LGBT community would be much more effective if everyone went out to march every time there was a march. That doesn't mean we get to force everyone to march, right? I don't have to be a part of the movement. I get to say, I want to save myself. I want to protect myself rather than being harmed by this. Secondly, the help we give these people is much, much bigger. Because if I'm going to be discriminated against, and this is the 50% who don't get help by this, right? Because the fact that it doesn't work on me means I'll just anyway live a life that's very, very difficult, right? It'll be a bit more difficult, but it'll anyway be difficult. Here we are saving people from the difficulty as a whole. Lastly, we torture less people, right? We put less people through the awful black market and through the awful illegal versions of this therapy. For all these reasons, please propose. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for this fine speech and happy to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and assume I'm audible unless I hear otherwise. Thank you. Beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to do a couple of things in this speech. First, I'm going to address basically the two questions that have formed so far in this debate, which are A, where there is more harm to more people, and second, whether there is a justification for this policy. I'm going to explain to you basically, that's basically it. I'm just going to explain to you why we think there are more people harmed on our side and why we think it is far more justified to prevent these sorts of harms from occurring than it is to try to create a situation where people are forced into changing something in themselves, which is not an inherent flaw to begin with. So let's address some of the things that we just heard and talk about in general the problem of who we are harming in this debate, because we hear from opening government that essentially, there's people in these really religious communities and they are really suffering because they're gay, and so they need to stop being gay. First, I would argue they're not really suffering because they're gay, are they? They're really suffering because other people are treating them badly because they are gay, and this is a suffering which is a result of societal norms that we are slowly but surely fixing within our society. By preventing this, you're actually preventing the effective treatment of the problem, because it's treating the actual problem rather than a symptom of problems in society in general, which is we're not really cool with people that are different from us. And since we're actually making progress there, harming that progress is surely more problematic. Then in addition to this, it's just a simple issue that the people from these communities that they're talking about are very, very small minority, especially in the status quo of this not being a choice for someone and then not having a choice. These communities are a lot more accepting of people who are gay and of allowing them to be part of their communities than they are in an alternative world where they have a choice in the matter. And this doesn't necessarily mean that they think that what they're doing is okay and on the up and up God-wise, but it does mean that they are aware that because it isn't this person's choice, and because generally speaking it's not their job to have heavenly justice on earth, it's okay for that person to continue being a person. They should be accepting of them and sympathetic towards them and sympathetic towards their plight, and God will deal with whether they're actually inherently sinners or not. Spoiler alert, they're not. Now, let's talk about the harms that we do see when these treatments are available, because as Rachel explained to you, this is simply going to create a new narrative within society or recreate old narratives that we have gladly shunned into the past of the fact that being gay is entirely your choice because you have a way out of it. Now, the thing about this is that it means that there's a lot less sympathy for the people who are suffering from it. And then we get this response of, people understand that 50-50 doesn't mean everything. Yes, but people don't generally think that, oh, you took a 50-50 shot at something and you failed. Well, like generally speaking, they're going to expect everyone to take a chance, or they're going to say it's a 50-50 chance. Why don't you bother going? Like this is going to affect two groups of people, both the people who are, get treated and those who don't. Because at the end of the day, regardless of the success rate, we're reframing this as an illness, okay? So even if it's going to be framed no differently from someone who has fear of flying and getting CBT for it. The point of things is that this is framed as if you don't bother getting CBT for your fear of flying, it's your own bloody fault that you are afraid of flying. Oh, maybe it won't work. For some people, it doesn't work, but surely you should be bloody getting it. I mean, obviously you should be giving it a shot. The problem here, of course, is that there is an inherent difference, which is that having a fear of flying is something that genuinely affects your ability to do things regardless of societal expectations of you, but simply as an inherent thing of you cannot fly in planes and go to other countries. Now, but in this case, we're talking about trying to fix something which is not a problem, and that is why this is inherently different. So why is this so harmful to those people? Wow, okay, let's reorganize, because this has become very, very messy. Let's talk about the harms to the people that happen as a result of this societal reframing. It means that people constantly feel that there is something wrong with them because being gay has been reframed as a disease that you can be cured of, and maybe you won't manage to be cured of, but it is a disease that can be cured, meaning it is a problem that should be fixed. In addition, there is an enormous amount of pressure. Every single gay person in society is going to have someone that they know that's going to be pressuring them into getting this treatment. They are going to have a conservative grandparent telling them, oh, but now you can just fix it. Just go and get yourself fixed. It's so easy. Just do it. And they're going, which means that, first of all, in addressing that these people just aren't going to have a free choice on whether they get this treatment or not. And this is why this is different from, say, climbing a mountain, which is entirely up to you whether you want to climb the mountain, because there isn't thousands of years of history trying to force you to climb mountains, even if that's not how you feel and if you don't feel that bad about being at sea level. I think that at this point, anyone who's constantly refusing again and again and again and being told by their families to do it and aren't doing it is suffering a lot as a result of this, because they constantly feel that they are not doing what is desired of them, that they are failing their families, and that this is a choice that they're making that is not the one that their people around them are demanding of them. And those who try therapy are very likely, if they have a 50% chance of it failing and feeling as though, oh, not only do I have a disease, I'm one of the miserable sods who can't even get it fixed. This is an even worse sense of something being deeply, deeply wrong with you, so deeply wrong that the doctors can't take care of it. Now, before I continue, can I take CG?
Okay. Yeah, we think the gay community, a lot of time, themselves say the narrative, it's a choice and it's a good choice, like bisexual, pansexual, all different sexual. So people can choose to be gay, choose not to be gay, it doesn't make it disease.
Okay, I think first of all that is not the predominant narrative of the LGBT community, and I don't think it's the narrative that has managed to get them the rights that they currently have in status quo, and these are rights that we think that they should have and should keep having, and the thing that Rachel did a very good job of explaining to you why it's very likely that they lose a lot of this rights. But on specifically this issue of justification, we simply think that treating someone for something that is not a problem, that something that is not inherently harming them, but rather it's harming them that people see them as problematic in any way, is inherently wrong. We should not be treating people for the fact that they don't conform to society. But in addition to this, considering the fact that the people seeking this treatment are likely to be coerced into it and is not going to be a free choice of theirs, that is even more harmful. And considering the fact that offering this choice is going to be reducing the, increasing the harms to people who aren't going to choose to do it inherently by creating this new narrative of the fact that it's their own fault that they're suffering, is an even worse thing. There's my weighing page. So I think that at the end of the day, we're just talking about more people, because we're talking both about the people who aren't going to pursue this treatment and half of the people who do bother pursuing the treatment scene, inherently the same number of people plus more. And we think that the harms on the sides are at most symmetrical, probably worse on our side, and therefore please oppose.
I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for this nice region to open the second half of the debate and hit critical upon the member of government. Hear, hear.
I clearly visible and audible?
You're a bit, try to speak closer to the microphone or talk louder.
Is this better? If not, I can take off my headphones.
Yeah, it's a bit better.
Okay. If it's a bit better, I'll treat that as enough. Okay. I will begin my speech in מה כנ"ל?
לא שומעים אותך כפרה, צריך לדבר חזק.
עכשיו שומעים אותי? אוקיי, קול. אז אני אתחיל את הנאום שלי בעוד 3, 2, 1. What I'm going to do in my speech is explain why it is going to be better for all gay people and why it will be better specifically for those who become straight after the procedure, as well as for those who do not. Before that, let's start with a rebuttal to OO on public perception of statistics, because OO are correct that people struggle to grasp complex things like coefficients and isolated parameters, but 50% is incredibly easy to understand. This is an answer that they already received from our top app and don't properly engage with. Now note, OO agree in the LO speech that it only works once. It can only be attempted at 50% chance once, because otherwise we can approach 100% success chance, and that is the different motion. That is what you yourself were saying, Rachel, because if we can do it again and again, 50% and 75, then etc., and eventually we get 100%. So clearly we can't do that. If we can, then we just think that people will be able to get it for sure if they want to. So obviously that's not what you're arguing for, Rachel. So that means that it's like a scientific test. It tells you you are or you aren't. You go through it, it's 50% chance. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, it's not gonna work again. Because again, if it's gonna work again, then we think that we've already won the debate at that point, because we can just allow anyone who doesn't want to be gay for sure for 100% to just get to do that. So let's get into our first post. So at that point, we think that it is definitive. So many people will use it. Many people will trust the statistics as a result of this. And this is, of course, significant for the public perception of this process overall. So let's explain why it's better for all gay people. Let's go through the process that people currently go through when they discover they're gay. It's stress, because this is now an aspect of my identity that defines me, that isolates me, that makes me a minority. I go online, I read about it. It seems like it's a whole culture. Will I have to fit into the culture? What if I don't fit into the culture? Will I have to be that kind of gay? Are there other kinds of gay? There is a lot of stress involved. Now, I'm likely to receive negative feedback from my community or family. That is, I hear that people are likely to receive troubles when they come out of the closet. I expect that to happen, and there's a high chance that the first person I'll go to an approach will have no clue how to deal with it, because most people have never had anyone open up to them and come out of the closet to them, definitely not for the first time. At that point, many people, especially teenagers, internalize it, shut it aside. They feel like they don't have any autonomy. They didn't choose this to happen to them. They feel helpless, and so they enter the closet. Now note, they have negative internal monologues, but they are unable to stop thinking about it because it is their sexual attraction, right? And we're talking about teenagers here. That means that they constantly either have self-hatred and self-blame, or anger at their society and feeling that they're trapped, or worst of all, that they become the most homophobic people, as in the types of mega pastors who go on and say, everybody constantly has sinful thoughts of having sex with every man they see around him. That's the devil trying to tempt us. And it's like, no, dude, I'm sorry, but you're gay and you're in the closet, and it's very, very sad, but those are often the worst types of homophobes. So how does that look differently on our world? Because people have the time to process. They have the time to understand what it means to me. There is no stress. They don't feel that this is now a definition, a prescription for the rest of their life. They know that this is something that can be changed if they decide that it needs to be changed. Now, note the very existence of this autonomy versus the helplessness, the feeling that this is something that they can affect, makes them feel in control of their lives. It makes them feel that they're able to see how society reacts to them and see what life is and whether they like this life or don't. It means that instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to have to move to Tel Aviv or to Amsterdam or whatever the equivalent metropolitan, homosexual friendly metropolitan where you live is, instead of thinking that, and they think, well, I can at least have a chance to try and stick it out in Dimona or in Yerucham or in Nahariya or wherever it is that the equivalent that they live. So why is this better for those who end up becoming straight? We just think that the advantages of being straight are pretty obvious, but we're going to be more nuanced and comparative to how that looks for gay people than our opening half was. So first of all, we have less discrimination. Know that discrimination can be conscious or subconscious, so also existent in our liberal societies. It can be related directly to the sexual orientation, as soon as I discover about it, and so many people keep it hidden from their surroundings, which is a harm in and of itself. But it also has to do with socio-cultural expressions of it, such as a high voice and certain mannerisms or certain dress codes for gay men. Now, why does this happen? Because people in society tend to prioritize those who are similar to them and discriminate against anyone who's different or who represents anything unknown, especially something unknown that they have heard a lot of stigmas about and a lot of propaganda against. Secondly, just how easy it is to exist as such a person in a way, as a sexual person, when this is your sexual orientation. How easy is it to get laid, and how easy is it to get to date people? Because dating is incredibly difficult in our world in general, because we seek people to whom we are both sexually and romantically attracted, who are similarly intelligent and successful to us, who live near us and are roughly our age, because we have so many options that we see around us, because we want to have relationships for true love, and we feel like we have to seek that final true love relationship, and we're wasting our time until then. It is very difficult for people to find these proper candidates. But for gays, they now have to divide it by 10, because only a tenth of those people are likely to be gay as well and attracted back to them. That means more compromise, worse relationships, and worse experiences due to being more desperate for those experiences and more willing to tolerate those sexual experiences, even if they aren't great, just because you want to get something. Next, it's easier just to adopt and have families. They say society is built for two, but society also assumes that those two will be hetero. It's like how every object is built for left-handed people, but it means that every time you have a deal for couples or a vacation for couples, every time there's a parent-teacher meetings, everyone's expectation of couple is a heterosexual couple, and for your entire life you will be nuisanced and you will be frustrated by this, and it is unclear what benefits you get from this. And the most important, and finally, we do have religious communities, which are a small population, but they're a population that, just to do a quick and better analysis than opening half here, we don't want them to have to choose between their community, which would shun them if they love, or love. We think that those are both things that people inherently deserve in their life, and we think that the very fact that we enable 50% of them to not have to choose that is already getting to the biggest impact that our opening half are trying to get to in a lot less analysis time. Do I have a PI from closing?
Yes,
Opening?
we just think that it will be much harder for gay people to get out of the closet when they know that everything that everyone will tell them is, oh, okay, just go to conversion therapy.
We don't think that's what everyone will tell them. We think what people ask them is, oh, that's cool. Are you interested in going to conversion therapy, or are you like happy with what you got? We think that asking people, are you interested, is asking people, how would you like to exercise your autonomy? We think that's a much better question than what is your sexual orientation? Figure out what you are. Are you sure that's what you are? All these objective questions are a lot more difficult for people. How will continue from there. So let's explain why it's better also for gays who don't choose to be tested, to get tested, because we do think there is such a thing as gay culture. That is a fringe culture that was developed in cities such as San Francisco in the early 1970s by and around LGBTQ culture. Now, we think that comes with a certain live as you want attitude, oftentimes meaning live at odds with social norms and conventions. But many people don't want that. Many gay people don't identify with that because they're just normative in their intentions, and then try to distance themselves and actively belittle and go against the gay community because they feel like they're being accused for what the gay community around them is displaying as disacceptance. We'd rather that those people would just be straight and just be outside of the community, and that's it. For all of these reasons, we're very proud to propose.
I thank the member of government for this fine speech and happy to open the member of opposition. Here.
Just a second. Thanks for the clapping. Am I audible? All right, great. Okay. Sorry, I'm very excited. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. What is the thing that is most important for gay people? We think that we know that all gays know that they are hated in religious societies. This is just the fact. Moreover, it's not actually certain how much the effectiveness of conversion therapy is actually relevant to whether people hate them more or less, because many religious people believe in conversion therapy even today. This is the reason why they exist so much. So it's not really important what is the delta of conversion therapy in the macro level, as opening opposition are trying to sell us. Okay, so we are going to talk about the micro level, about the individual, and we're going to talk about the free choice that the individual don't have, and about the support systems that the individual people is going to lose once we legalize this thing. Let's talk about why this is an uninformed decision and we don't think it can ever be. Why do we think we prohibit conversion therapy today? Not because they're not working, because they're evil, because we're going to talk about two things so I can be organized. The first thing is that this therapy is inherently bad, and the second thing is why it is forced on people, and this will be more than OO gives us. So first of all, I want to characterize how this treatment looks, because we do think government has a fiat to show us how does it probably will look, but we can infer by looking at how it looks today, how it will probably be. Okay, so we think it's not completely shown by governments how it's going to look, but it probably will be some similarity to what is today. It's a traumatic treatment, okay? It is involved sometimes punching myself when I think about women, when I think about liking women. It's something that even if it's not harmful physically, it gets to the deepest places in my soul, because it's going to be psychological, makes me hate pieces about myself, makes me feel like some wheels of me are not legitimate. Moreover, it makes me feel like I have a choice about being gay or not being gay, which is so harmful, because as we discussed, it's a biological thing that we have. We are born with it. We can't change it. And when I am actively made to believe that I have choice over this, I just feel so bad when I can't control myself. So we are telling you, listen, this getting inside the deepest places in my soul and making me feel like those deepest places are places that are illegitimate is something that harms you psychologically very, very much. And even if you go at the end of the tunnel and you're not gay anymore, it was so harmful to you that it is not worth it. And we say, well, they give us in opening government, well, listen, but he wants to be closer to God. But the psychological harms they have are much, much harder than just really being then feeling sometimes like you are maybe not connected to God, like you have this thing that you need to justify to yourself why it is part of the challenges that God's bring you. We see many gay religious people that are able to live with this contradiction today. We don't see why not having children is so important. Well, listen, just get a girl and marry her and bring children. You don't have to be attracted to her. So we see that because you are not informed by how traumatic this experience will be, you can't have a rational decision in that sense. But moreover, it is forced on you. Firstly, everyone does it. Why? Exactly because what OO told us, everybody does it. But moreover than OO, we say that the models that are shown in the religious society are exactly the models that did it and succeed. And the impression you have is not that you will sometimes fail, is that they succeeded, so you have to succeed. So it is this social impression, and probably there will be some sanctions on who doesn't do that, because this is a religious society. There are religious sanctions of people that don't abide by the laws of God. Before I continue, opening government, yes, please.
Obviously, this conversion therapy is difficult. Be comparative. People choose to do this because in the long run, it is less difficult because they're accepting their family and like have a life and a life.
Thank you. We think that people are not capable of making this decision when they are so brainwashed by the ideas of religion, and this is exactly when the government needs to intervene and stop this madness that is going on here, like we intervene in many other situations. Let's talk about the support system that a gay person have when he gets out of the closet. So why is it so important? Because we say that the initial getting out of the closet is a thing that is very important kill you psychologically. Having this one person that you can share your ideas and beliefs and wills with is the thing that can make the difference between even suicide or just feeling really bad about yourself to being able to live with this side of yourself that you hate. So when I want to get out of the closet, what do I look for? I look for a support of only one person that will tell you, well, it is okay. Don't worry. I am with you. I support you no matter what you do. And we say when you're in a religious community, it is so difficult. Why do I don't want to necessarily go to conversion therapy? First thing, I might be in love. I don't know. I don't want to get rid of that. Second thing is that it is a part of my identity. Being gay is a part of my identity. I don't want to lose a part of my identity. Even if I hate this part, I don't necessarily want to lose it. Thirdly, I am curious about that. Fourthly, that 50% of it not working is actually so scary for me that I can't just go out of the closet and let people have saying to me all of the time, why are you not going to conversion therapy? And fifthly, this treatment is really scary because it's a very like, I don't know, chodrani, a very bad therapy. Okay, so why is it makes a difference in the way that people go out of the closet? I know as a gay person that if I get out of the closet, I won't have what Ayal telling you, oh, maybe you go to conversion therapy. I know I will have, okay, right now go to conversion therapy, and probably if I'm a minor, it will be just forced on me. Okay, why will it make it so difficult for me? Because I don't want this therapy and I want the support of people. I don't want them to tell me what to do. I don't want them to make me go through such hard things. So what is the only logical thing for me to do? Because I think I know what people will tell me. I will just stay with it in my heart and not tell anybody. And we think this is so harmful because we prevent people from getting out of the closet, from even confessing to themselves and the most important people in their life about their struggles. And we say we prevent people actively from seeking for help. Very proud to oppose.
Okay. The first thing I'm going to do in the speech is explain to you and prioritize why the conservative and religious effects on the individual are the most important thing in this debate. Then I will move on to explain why we actually do this in the most correct way. Firstly, that's where the therapy is going to happen the most. Given that everyone in this room agrees that there are liberal changes and liberal shifts in entire societies that are not conservatives, which the majority of the state is usually comprised of, that are shifting towards more acceptance. Therefore, more people in your surrounding and on yourself is going to understand that your identity as a gay person or as a queer person is okay. Therefore, you are less likely to even opt into this therapy. Secondly, in terms of likelihood, right? That's where the most identity conflicts even happen in the first place, which means that I as an individual, I will want more to opt in to these things when I'm part of that community. Thirdly, why this is also important, more important than OO's case about politicization, etc. Right? We think two reasons. Firstly, this is not exclusive to the motion. I think the effect that this specific act would have on like already made progress is very unclear. Secondly, it is less probability and less proximity on the individual. Therefore, our impacts are much more tangible, much more likely, because it is unclear under their analysis how existing politicians that are not conservative change their incentives compared to the population. And I think both governments gave them pretty good attachments. Let's move on to how we actually are tackling this. Let's start with OG, and I'm going to give much better engagement than we got from OO, right? OG tell us, oh, but this is very bad for religious people because of three reasons, like hell, marriage, and community, right? Notice all of these reasons depend heavily on the premise that religious people care more about religion than anything else. They just assume this. I will challenge it. Yes, it does when you say this. I will challenge this 4 ways. Firstly, I just challenge the notion that religious is the most important thing in someone's life. I can still have many incentives, like I want to get good education, I want to get my basic needs, I want to have income, I want to have friends around me, and all of these things culminate in me wanting to generally just have a good life regardless of whether or not I am a religious person, right? Secondly, I think there is a cognitive dissonance that allows us to actually opt into both identities, like Yael already explains, right? In terms of how people interact with religion, right? There are many Orthodox people that are very, very good doctors and scientists because they are simply a different person in the lab than they are in the church, right? Both of these identities can exist in the same time because they just operate different parts of that person's life. So it already tells you this, and this also takes down OG. Thirdly, I think in a lot of cases, the queer identity is actually more important than the religious identity, simply because it is a unique piece of identity to me, which means that I hold less value on the fact that everyone around me is religious. Firstly, I just see it as less special. Secondly, I am angry both at my community and at God himself for making me suffer through what my community has me to go through just because I am gay, right? Which means that I am just holding more value to the identity that oppresses me less. Fourthly, just people don't have epistemic access to objective truth, which means that we lack knowledge to resolve the identity conflict. And so what this does to the debate is that the majority of people, the religious identity is either less important or at least as important as the queer identity, which means majority of people would, even from these communities, would not want to opt in as a free choice and to have this conversion therapy, which now means we get to access all of the impacts about how they're being forced into it, etc. But let's do another thing. Let's explain even for why these very small amount of people we're getting much more better outcomes, even if they choose to do this, and even if the conversion works. Two very important assumptions that OG never engaged with, right? Because what Yael tells you here is, firstly, this is very bad because usually this involves a lot of physical and psychological harm on the people that are going through this. Notice both governments make a crucial mistake here, because the guarantee of success on 50% of the population only guarantees success of the conversion. Right now, that means that even if I get as an individual utility from being converted, and that makes me happy, that does not mean the net utility psychologically that I get is positive, right? Because I can still have many, many harms from this therapy. And Yael explained this because firstly, it is a very long process. It is very difficult. It is very frustrating. It is putting pressure on myself if I don't know if I'll succeed. And it literally can cause me, in a lot of cases, trauma, because I opt into this unknowingly with optimism bias and short-term bias, and now I enter the deepest parts of my soul. I ask the most private questions that I don't know how to answer. I literally am getting harmed by this process, which means even if the conversion succeeds, I enter it, firstly, very psychologically harmed, and secondly, what I look back at is, oh fuck, I wanted to go back. I didn't know that it would be like this. I lost such a significant part of my identity. I could not have possibly known that this is how I would feel. This is how we win the debate. CG responds to this. Firstly, I don't want to hurt myself. Again, uninformed, so it doesn't matter. Secondly, free market media criticism. Religious people don't opt into the religious read liberal media. They read religious newspapers that actively push this narrative and say, oh, this is not that bad. This is very, very good actually for you. Thirdly, still prohibited to damage. Listen, we're not electrocuted them, right? But we can still opt into very significant psychological damage. And fourthly, we need science experts. I don't know. I feel like those would actually be the least empathetic people and the least regard to what we're having, right? So let's take a POI from OG. Yeah.
For some reason, everyone in this debate has ignored the fact that we explain that I can't have a biological child with my partner and I get constantly discriminated against. It's not just the fact that, oh, I'm religious, so I care.
Okay, so obviously, like I've explained, these are significantly mitigated by the fact that I've almost in most cases I'm part of a liberal society. Secondly, I just beat this case by explaining why you can. Okay, so I think Yael also responded to this. Why this beat OG? Firstly, on their own population, and where OO failed to engage on the fact that even if this succeeds, and even if this is something I opted into out of choice, I am caused significant harm. This beats CG because we are just using more likely analysis about how the society is likely to perceive you, right? Because we are using existing biases and existing beliefs about queer people that exist in these type of communities, and they never show you how radically we can just make that change. Therefore, we do not have all of the comfort and dialogue that we get in. Thirdly, they just never respond to our point about support structures. Even if I have that one person that I can come and interact with, that now disappears because I know that they're going to advise me to go to therapy. We think that is also very significant, and therefore we are winning this debate. Thank you very much.